So today I'm very excited to show you an absolute revolution in the way that Android games can be emulated on the Mac. So if you own an M series Apple Silicon Mac, including the M1, M2 or M3, we now have a brand new way of emulating mobile games on it, which completely opens up the number of compatible titles which can actually be run on macOS. So that includes titles like PUBG Mobile, Minecraft Bedrock, Genshin Impact, Arknights, Clash of Clans, Harry Potter Magic Awakened, Pokemon Unite, Sonic Dash, EA FC 24, and even games like Clash of Clans, Geometry Dash, Honkai Star Rail, etc. And all of the Android versions of these games can be run through a brand new emulator called MuMuPlayer Pro. So if you haven't heard of MuMuPlayer before, they're traditionally a desktop Android emulator, but the new Pro version of the software has been optimized for the Apple Silicon Mac, and it can run a whole bunch of titles which other methods fail to do. So in the past, I've covered other methods of running Android games on a Mac, including the use of Android Studio. And this is a little bit flawed, unfortunately, because it only supports OpenGL. However, MuMuPlayer Pro has much higher levels of graphics API support, and it translates games into the Apple graphics API called Metal, and so it's capable of far better performance. We also have a previous method that I covered in the past called Play Cover, and MuMuPlayer is going to be far superior to this because we don't need to use decrypted apps. We can go ahead and use the Google Play Store to download games, and it has far better compatibility as well. So far more games will actually work using the MuMuPlayer Pro emulator. It's going to make it much easier to do things like updates. You don't have to disable any security features to get these games working either. And there are far more games that actually work on MuMuPlayer Pro compared to Play Cover. MuMuPlayer Pro also has great support for keyboard, mouse, and also controller support with a very robust key mapping system to allow you to translate your keyboard and mouse and gamepad controls onto the touchscreen. MuMuPlayer Pro is also insanely well optimized. You can run multiple Android devices all at the same time, so you can play multiple games simultaneously. It is a native ARM application optimized for Apple Silicon hardware, and it's ideal for multiple types of games too. So play games like first and third person shooters, you can play strategy games, you can play third person adventure games as well, even things like MOBAs. The software itself is quite adaptable and it's very easy to use as well. So in this video today, I'm going to be showing you a full tutorial on how to get MuMuPlayer running on your Apple Silicon Mac. I'm going to show you how to create an Android device, how to log into the Google Play Store, how to download certain games and implement workarounds, how to use the keyboard, mouse, and gamepad input mapper. I'm going to be showing you a lot of these games actually working for the very first time locally on Apple Silicon hardware, and also games which I've nearly got to work and probably needs a little bit of community support and pressure on the developers of MuMuPlayer Pro to help get these games working. And also what you want to be doing is making sure that you try this out right now, because you can make use of a 7-day completely free trial which is fully functional and for a very limited time only whilst MuMuPlayer Pro is still in beta. It is only 1 cent to subscribe for an entire month of usage. Once the full release of MuMuPlayer Pro comes out in the next few weeks, then it's going to increase to $9.99. So you want to be checking this out right now and making sure that your favorite games are going to be working on this system too. So the first thing that we're going to do is to go ahead and click the link at the top of the video description. Every time that you sign up, it's going to help to support this channel and the content that I create. So once you've clicked on the link in the description, you'll be taken to the MuMuPlayer Pro website. So the Pro version is the one that we want. This allows us to run Android games on our Apple Silicon Macs. The standard version won't work at the moment. So at the time of recording, this is currently in beta, and this has a 7-day free trial, and the beta version also allows you to sign up for a month for only 1 cent. In the future, this is going to be a fully paid up monthly subscription, and the instructions here might change in the future. So make sure to test this out now because it's only going to be 1 cent for a limited amount of time. And all we need to do now is to click the join the beta button here, and it's going to go ahead and download the software. Just be aware that after the beta, this might look a little bit different after the full release. So now what we're going to do is to go into our Finder and then open up the software, and we're going to go to our downloads folder, double click on MuMuPlayer Pro, and then open up this DMG. And basically we're going to agree to the terms and conditions, and it's going to go ahead and start the installation process. And then we've got this MuMuPlayer Pro icon, double click on here, and now this is verifying. Here we're going to allow MuMuPlayer Pro to open up. And now it's saying here the installation is complete, press the launch button. Once again, we're going to press the open button, and now the software is ready for us to log in. So what I'm going to do here is to click continue with Google, or you can use your email address to create an account. And then we're going to go ahead and sign in with either a Google account or create a new account here. So right now what we're going to be doing is starting the 7-day free trial. So we're going to click on this here. And now we have MuMuPlayer Pro open. So if we take a look at this, by default, we can go to the settings before we open this up, and we can go ahead and tweak some settings. So one thing I recommend doing is tweaking the resolution depending on what kind of screen you're using on your Mac. I'm going to switch mine to 1080p. We're going to enable the FPS counter. So one thing that you can tweak as well is enabling graphics enhancement. So if you enable this, then specific games like Genshin Impact will have improved graphics. Just be aware that it's going to increase system resource usage and also might cause some visual bugs too, so use this at your own risk. In terms of performance, you can tweak here energy saving or balanced or high performance. And this basically changes the number of CPU cores and amount of RAM that's being consumed by this virtual machine. So I'm going to be turning mine up to high performance, and this is going to give us 6 CPU cores and 12 gigabytes of RAM usage, which my particular MacBook Pro can handle quite easily. These settings will all depend on what kind of Mac that you're currently using. So we don't necessarily need to tweak any other settings. What I'm going to do now is to launch this Android device here through MuMuPlayer Pro. So now our Android device has been loaded up here. We can actually tweak the window size. It's going to stick to the 1080p aspect ratio that I said earlier. So here, if you've ever used an Android device, it's pretty familiar. So the buttons that we want to be aware of are things like the back button here. So if you click on an app here, like the settings app, you can press the back button, it'll go back. Also, if you're within an app, you can press the home button here, and that'll take us back to the launcher home screen here. We also have this multitasking button, which brings us all of the apps we have open, and we can use this to switch between different games and apps. So if you're familiar with Android gaming in general, the simplest way to go ahead and download apps is to use the Play Store. So this is the Android equivalent of the App Store. So click on this, and it basically wants us to sign in, and we can just create a Google account for free if you don't have one already, or you can just sign into your existing Google account. So here's asking us whether we want to use backup and storage. We can take this on or off if we want to press accept. So one thing I'm going to be testing out is a game called Genshin Impact. So we're going to do a search for Genshin, and then we're going to find this in the Play Store, and we'll press the install button here. So that's going to go ahead and start the install process. So here I've got Genshin Impact downloaded. What I'm going to do is open this up, and we're going to go ahead and basically log into our account and start downloading the assets. So just going to go ahead and log in. I'm going to verify our account, agree to the terms of service, press accept, and then select our server. I'm going to press start game. I'm going to start downloading all the resources that we need. So now the data is downloaded, I'm going to go ahead and tap to begin and see how this works. So here we have Genshin Impact running. What I'm going to do is just change some of the graphics settings. I'm going to put this on the 60 FPS, and you can see that this is working correctly. So here we can see this is running at 60 frames per second on my MacBook Pro. So you can see here that basically you can manipulate the on-screen controls using the touch interface. However, it's not very convenient. So what I want to do is do some keyboard and mouse configuration. So you can click on this button here and click on New Scheme. And basically what we can do is right-click on the spot here for D-pad, and we can basically control the screen using WASD. So I've got my keyboard here. I can move around using WASD keys, but let's say we want to do some attacks as well. So I can go here, and then let's edit this actual scheme and then add some more functions. So I'm going to right click here. We need to put down the aim function in order to allow left mouse click to work as well. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to bind this to the Alt key, and basically this will allow us to toggle on the kind of screen movement here using the swipe controls. And we also have this button here, which I'm going to put as fire attack. So I'm going to save this now. And basically, if I tap the option key, it's going to lock the mouse to the screen. So we can basically move around with the mouse, and then I can use the left click to do attacks. If I press the Alt key again, or the option key, then basically this frees up the mouse. And let's say we want to add these characters as well. We want to do the number controls for that. So I can click on this, click on edit scheme. I can right click on this character, click on tap spot, and I'm going to press the 1 key here. I'm going to do this for this one, 2, and then this one, 3, and press save. And then basically I can go ahead and click 1, 2, and 3, and just switch between different characters. So that can all be done through keyboard and mouse. You can basically do this for all of the controls. We can also do gamepad support as well. So with the gamepad, I've got my DualSense 5 controller paired to the Mac. So this has been paired here just by holding down the option and the home key, and just pair it up with the Bluetooth settings. And we don't have native follow support, I'm afraid. So here under settings, we still have touchscreen control type. However, we can basically configure controls in a similar way. So click on gamepad, click on edit scheme here, and then basically we could do things like right click here, put the left joystick here, we can right click here and put the right joystick here so that it does kind of aim controls, and then we can go here, right click on the attack button here, and then you have this blank space here, triangle button here, and I'm going to press this button, tap spot, I'm going to press the jump button here for the cross button, then make sure to press save. And then basically on the controller side, I can do controls like this. And then I've got mapping support for jump and mapping support for attack as well. So that's all working. And lastly, we can full screen this as well. We can press the green button here to full screen. And this is basically going to allow us to see the full beautiful graphics of the game. We can control this using controller, keyboard and mouse, and it seems to work fantastically. So I'm just going to be testing out a little bit of the combat, and you can see that we're getting a pretty solid 60 frames per second on my MacBook Pro. And sometimes it will dip under. If we do a big explosion like that, then we're going to see it drops in frame rate, but mostly it feels very responsive and smooth. So here we're going to go ahead and test out some different games. So I'm going to try PUBG Mobile. So this, of course, is the mobile version of PUBG, which is a little bit different from the desktop version. The graphics are definitely toned down. It's definitely designed for a smartphone. Here we're actually capped at 40 frames per second, and that's part of the game limitation. And what's really surprising is just the fact that we haven't been able to get PUBG running locally on a Mac for the entire lifespan of the Apple Silicon hardware lineup. So it's actually really exciting to see that this is actually working on Apple Silicon Macs and I haven't been banned. So this doesn't have native keyboard and mouse support, so I've had to apply the keyboard mapper. But despite this, I am still playing competitively. Now personally, I'd love to see other big multiplayer shooters working through MuMuPlayer Pro. I have tested out others, for example, Call of Duty Mobile, Call of Duty Warzone, and unfortunately those both crash when you start them up. So PUBG is one of the few that actually seems to work fine. So here we're running the game Diablo Immortal, and unfortunately I can't get this to actually run at 60 frames per second. It's saying here that this is not supported by a device. I've tried switching to a higher end device emulation, but it doesn't seem to be working. But it does seem to work not too badly. So I've bound the WASD keys here. I've got the aiming mode on, and basically I have the ability to play pretty much the main version of Diablo Immortal, and it doesn't have a lot of the major issues that you have when you're running through play cover, where you have to constantly update the game, and it's a bit more lightweight than trying to run the full Windows version of the game as well. So here I'm just going to run through some more game testing that I've done. So here, of course, is Clash of Clans, one of the most popular strategy games available. Now, it is pretty easy to run. It's just a 2D strategy game after all. However, this cannot be sideloaded on an Apple Silicon Mac using Play Cover or Sideloadly. This is due to an anti-cheat check. However, on MuMuPlayer Pro, it seems to work fine. So I'm not exactly sure what the reasoning is, but it seems to be that MuMuPlayer Pro is able to bypass whatever restrictions and get this working on your Mac. Next up is EA FC 24. So this is the football game from EA. The full desktop version can't be run on Parallels or Crossover due to its anti-cheat. So we're kind of stuck with this version of the game, which does have full keyboard and mouse mapping already integrated into MuMuPlayer Pro. I'm not much of a football player myself, so you have to see whether this is going to be good enough for you, but it's basically the only version we can play on a Mac. Next up is Harry Potter Magic Awakened. This is a collectible card game with kind of RPG strategy elements. We're capped at 30 frames per second for some reason. Again, this is one of the very few Harry Potter games that you can play on a Mac. However, for a more fulfilling experience, I do recommend playing Hogwarts Legacy through Crossover instead. It works great. Next game we're looking at is the very popular RPG tower defense game with anime characters called Arknights. This also has built-in keyboard and mouse bindings applied already, and the game really performs well running at 120 FPS. As far as I'm aware, this is an extremely popular title, so make sure to check it out on your Mac. The next game we're looking at is Pokemon Unite. This is a free-to-play online battle arena game, of course featuring Pokemon characters. Now this game is actually side-loadable through Played Cover, but you have to apply some fixes in order to get this to work. If you use MuMuPlayer Pro, it is far simpler to get this set up, and it runs beautifully at 60 frames per second. Next up we are looking at Honkai Star Rail. So this is another Hoyoverse game, the makers of Genshin Impact and Honkai 3rd Impact. And instead of being an action game set in an open world, this is actually a turn-based sci-fi RPG, and it seems to run very nicely at 60 frames per second via MuMuPlayer Pro. Another game that you can test out is the Bedrock version of Minecraft. So this is the same Minecraft that's being played on smartphones and on console as well. So if you have multiplayer servers that you want to join using this particular version instead of the Java edition, then this is a really good way of doing it. Getting 120 frames per second on this particular view, and it does support WASD keys as well. So if I move around here, that's enabled by default. However, if you want to be able to do mouse aim as well, then you kind of need to do the keyboard support again. You need to add this in, edit the scheme, and then I've added the aim here with the tilde as a toggle. I've got the left mouse button here, and you can bind all the keys like so. Basically, that works with the keyboard and mouse support. So we're just going to change the render distance to 17 chunks, and we're still getting a very decent 120 frames per second. So this seems to be working pretty decently, even with this pretty long render distance, pushing the emulation of this mobile version of this game pretty much to the limit. So lastly, I just want to talk about Fortnite. So I have seen other people playing Fortnite through MuMuPlayer Pro. However, it looks like something's changed over the last week or so. I'm not actually able to connect to an online match. So to even connect up to the lobby, you have to implement several workarounds in MuMuPlayer Pro. What I'm going to do is to leave a link in the description to a video on my second channel, which is going to contain the basic instructions of how to load up the lobby. Hopefully other people are going to help figure out how to get this game working. Also, if you have any other issues running games through MuMuPlayer Pro, I highly recommend that you check out their Discord server. The more information that we can crowdsource, the more likely we can get more games running through MuMuPlayer Pro. Anyway, I hope you found this video interesting. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.